Hi everyone, I am Noelle and I'm here today with Grant Green from Tampa Lacrosse. So I know it's been a hectic few weeks for you, Grant. What has it been like? What's been going on?
Yeah, it's been a lot. Certainly a lot of emotions, between myself and my teammates and everything. So, end of the game Sunday. It was an amazing experience. Flew back home late. Well, I guess it'd be early the next morning, around 3 a.m. And since then, it's just been, saying goodbyes to the seniors, guys that is our last time playing, and just really enjoying their presence, just because it's something that's not guaranteed in the future anymore. Um, so yeah, the past couple weeks just been, coming to terms with the season, obviously being very content and thankful for how it went, despite the loss, despite the ups and the downs. Um, but yeah, it's just been a lot of the team getting together, enjoying time, and yeah, enjoying ourselves, enjoying the moment, enjoying the summer
Yeah.
most of all, the off season. So it's been good.
Did you guys get a chance to have a kind of like a goodbye either up in New England or back when you got to Florida?
Yeah, so when we came back to Florida, we had our exit team meeting, which was our last meeting of the year. Kind of that was really the last time we all saw everybody in the same room together. Um, and that day we all got together, spent some time with each other. A lot of the guys went home. There's a couple guys staying down here for the summer, myself included. So we did have a official moment on campus, and just the guys that have stuck around, we've tried to get together as much as possible.
Nice. Yeah. It's such a crazy time to like once you make the playoffs, it's like not knowing when that like last game could be and like it's nice to know that you were still able to have closure, especially with the seniors and with everybody leaving. It's
Mhm.
so up in the air. And for those of you who don't know, I worked with the Tampa lacrosse team last year, so that's why I have kind of a little bit of an understanding of, what this team was like in the past. And then obviously we're going to talk about, what this year was like for you.
Mhm.
Um, but just kind of going into, you know, I think about victory in terms of, sometimes it's like the literal victory, literal winning of the game, but I feel like with this specific Tampa lacrosse team, there's something that bigger that's happening that I think we're gonna get into a lot with this episode. But I wanted to kind of start with the prayer circle, just in general, that you guys have been doing. And I know we talked about this a little bit last year as well. So if you can kind of just give some context for those of, people who don't really know anything about that.
Yeah, so after every game, this year it's been a guy named Matt Basso, who's an amazing guy, someone we all look up to a lot. Um, he's taken the honor to lead not only our team, but the opposing team as well in a post-game prayer at midfield after every game. And it's something that we really pride ourselves in doing is whether we win or we lose. Luckily this year we didn't experience much losses throughout the regular season, obviously, but it's something we'll do no matter what. It's a good way of kind of reminding ourselves that that's what life and sports is just all about. It's something bigger than ourselves. We play every time we step on the field. It's for a reason bigger than us, and that's our way of reminding not only ourselves but everyone watching that game. So
Yeah,
really cool.
definitely. Yeah, and I want to talk about the national championship game specifically because I first remember you telling me a few years ago at the last time Tampa was in the national championship, you said that was the first time that there was like a prayer on the field after in lacrosse, right?
Yeah, that's correct. That's yeah.
Yeah.
Coach Clark had told me that not long ago, and it's some I'll always it's really cool. It's something you don't
Yeah.
forget to make history like that on a national level, where hundreds, thousands of people are watching you. To be the first team to do that, I think is really cool. And I wasn't a part of that team myself, but at least speaking with the guys that were, it's something that meant the world to them.
Yeah, that really stuck with me, and it came to mind when I was watching you guys at this game. This one was so crazy because, so I'm gonna explain what it looked like from my perspective, and then you can give us like what was
Mhm.
going down on the field.
Yeah.
But like seeing, we know how that game ended. It was tough. It went into overtime. It was crazy. And then so to see like, they're celebrating the other team, they're getting their shirts and they're doing their whole thing, and you guys are, having your emotions as well. And it almost looked like I'm thinking to myself, are they going to do the prayer? Because I know you do it win or lose. I felt that it was coming, but it almost looked like you were going to kind of do your own over on the side for a minute because they were taken up most of the center field with their t-shirts and such. And
Hmm.
then I saw you guys, whoever it was, maybe you know, start to go over to the middle, tap someone on a Delphi and wave them over, and then a Delphi is getting their whole team to come over and to join in. And I was like, such a moment, everyone's watching, and like to see you go out of your way to do that. It's so hard to, I'm sure, just I don't know, grapple with everything that was happening. So then to go
Hmm.
out of your way to say, no, we're still going to do this. We're still committed to getting the other team and making this about becoming one, what that we've been doing all season. So what was that? What was actually going down on the field?
Yeah, you said it perfectly. I mean, the game ended in a split second, the blink of an eye. You know, you look up and it's over. They're celebrating. We're standing there in shock. It was really shocking. It's I'd say all the way until we left. Even when we got back here, it was still like, what just happened? But in that moment, yeah, you're right. I mean, that's our identity as a team you know, is showing our faith no matter what, win or lose. And I think it's one thing to have faith when things are going well for you and when there's victory and you're celebrating. It's easy to, give credit to God and wear your faith on your shoulder and display it to everybody. But it's one thing to do it when it's dark, when it doesn't go your way. And when you feel like, frustrated, upset, angry at yourself, at a lot of things, even maybe even God himself. Um, but that's not what faith is. Faith is showing your trust in God and staying true to that, whether through the ups or through the downs. And so that was obviously a down for us. And it'd be easy for us to walk away and say, screw that. We're going to the locker room. Let's get out of here. But it's another thing to really stay true to what we've been doing and what we'll continue to do as long as Tampa Lacrosse's program is staying true to our faith and showing it with pride, no matter what. So it
Yeah.
was it was it was a cool experience to take the knee at half field in Gillette Stadium. Um, you know, it was tough sitting with the guys that beat us, wearing their national championship shirts
Right.
and seeing the stadium covered with Adelphi national champs, But at the end of the day, it's not what it's about. It's about getting together and honoring God.
And that's exactly like what visually I was seeing as well was just like getting to see like unity of Christ, like literally in visual form. And like, you know, we're on opposite teams, but it's one body of believers. And just those things that are like from the Bible and that you hear about. But it's such a unique way in sports to like literally see that happen where you've got like opposing teams. And but then in this one moment, it's like, but this is why we're here and this is what we're doing. And I don't know, that was really special. And everything you said is like what came across to me as a viewer, and I hope more people continue to see in this team because I think it really is something special. And also, it's important to note that like it's pretty much every single player and coach on both teams, like almost
Yep.
100%. Which also just blows my mind because they do this in the NFL, they do this across every sport, but it's sometimes it's like 10 guys there. You know, it's not
Mhm.
always everybody at the end of those games. So it just has always blown my mind to see Tampa Lacrosse have like their 60 team roster like all getting in on this. I just think it's
Yeah.
amazing.
It is amazing. It's something that's really special here. And what's cool is we have the influence on other teams to join us as well. It's always been us going to the other team and saying, "Hey, we're going to pray out after the game. You guys are more than welcome to join us, mix in." And that's another thing that's cool we do too is it's not Tampa on one side of the circle and a Delphi or our opponent, whoever it is, on the other side, and it's divided. It's everyone's together. Everyone's touching someone in a different jersey um, as we take a knee. But it's really cool. It's really special, and I think it's cool that we're always initiating it for the most part, and leading others to Christ and honoring Him through our game. So
Yeah. And kind of going off on that, which I think we also talked about last year, was like that you didn't really expect this, like this like community, I guess, coming to the school specifically and to the team. And I mean, that's the same for me. Like, this is not, it's not like we're like a Christian school that like everybody's from the South and like, yeah, we just do this because you know, they tell us to. Like, people are from the North. They're like almost all 50 states are here.
yeah,
And so it's not really expected. And I think that speaks even more to the characters and the people and the leaders on the team that set this up because it is all you guys. Nobody is,
mhm.
you know, telling you to do that. So if you have like, I guess, yeah, what's the team dynamic in that aspect for you?
Yeah, you're right. It is 100%. It's something you don't really expect going into it, um, but it just as you said, it speaks volumes to the types of guys we have on our team. As a freshman going in. to here to Tampa. Obviously, it's something you don't look for, but it just kind of finds you. I remember the first time I was in. We always do an FCA or a Bible study meeting as a group of us in the team. It's open to everybody, whether you're religious or not. In fact, I actually know a couple of kids that aren't very religious, and they still choose to come in and sit in and just listen to stuff we have to say. But I remember the first meeting I was in, Bible study meeting I was in, it was probably a group of 4 or 5 of us in the fall. Um, and it was just cool to see that group kind of grow and grow and grow and people step up and speak on their faith and how they interpret the Bible and God's word. But it's something I've never experienced before in any sports or any school. I went to a public school, so obviously it wasn't faith-based or religious school. But it's cool. It's a really cool blend and really cool dynamic that we have here when we decide to dive into God's word and how it affects us. So it's awesome. It's really cool. Those meetings could go on for hours. I mean, there's been times where we have to keep it short because we're playing a game in 2 hours. We gotta
Yeah.
just, okay, we're gonna go through a couple verses, pray out, and we're ready to play this game. But it's amazing because with the group of guys we have, we can sit around and talk about that stuff forever. So
Yeah, and it is so amazing to hear, and I'm sure even for people who like I also went to public school, had no idea that this type of world was out there. Like to the point where most like I didn't really have like Christian community at all going up
mm,
through high school. And I didn't look for that going into college because I didn't know to look for that. And then I kind of got down to Tampa and started joining like the larger school FCA and plugging in. And I was like, whoa, this is cool. Like it's nice to know that that exists, which to some people they might be like, yeah, duh, like that because you grew up in that, but I
mm.
didn't. So to see that is really like inspiring, I think.
Yeah. And what's crazy is it always finds you. That stuff always somehow manages to find a way to get to you at the right time. And when it does, it's amazing. You just surrender yourself to it, and it can be life changing stuff. So it's cool that we have that here, and I think it's going to be something we'll do for the rest of history as Tampa's lacrosse team.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
That is awesome. So kind of going into more personal for you, like you're able to, plug into Bible study and to glorify God on the field because of the things that you do in private, things when no one's watching. It doesn't just kind of happen. So what for you does like a daily walk with Christ look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. For me, it's just getting into God's Word. I have a book, obviously the Bible, but there's a separate book that I have. It's called God's Promises, and I should have brought it with me, but it's essentially just a big book similar to the Bible, and it just goes through all of the phrases, all the verses in the Bible that God promises you. And I have a lot of them written down,
Yeah.
but I read through those. Another thing is just taking time to pray and talk to God daily, and being grateful for things. So one thing, it's a common misconception I think with a lot of people is when they pray, it's always asking for something. Like why is this happening in my life? Why don't I have this? Why isn't this working out? Why do we lose? Like God, and kind of going to Him asking for things and expecting to receive them right away. But I think the biggest thing that's kind of changed my mindset and affected me mentally is just being grateful for it all. So, thanking God for being in a beautiful place with great people, with great coaches. It can be little things like the weather,
Hmm.
stuff like that. Just being grateful for everything, I think, has a way of preparing you for more, if that makes sense. It's kind of
Yeah.
hard, but that that's really something that's changed my day to day with my day to day relationship with God. So
Hmm. Do you have a do you have a routine with it? Like, are you a morning Bible person or a night or like, how does that work for you?
and it's usually at night before I go to bed, just so it's kind of my way to decompress and reflect on not only the day but just the days leading up to it and being
Hmm.
thankful for. It. So
Yeah.
that's
Do you have a verse or one of the anything from your book written down that like kind of sticks out to you right now, or maybe something throughout the year that kept speaking to you?
absolutely, yeah. Right now, for sure. Just kind of with all this recent stuff in my life with the game, with the season, and all these emotions. It's something you really turn to. I think is putting those emotions and casting them on the Lord. And one verse I have written down is Psalm 55:22, and it says, "Cast your burden on the Lord, and He shall sustain you. He shall never permit the righteous to be moved." And I think that's perfect to what, we're going through now as a team. We obviously have a big burden of unfortunately a tough loss, but it's something you just give up to God. It's something that we're not meant to carry. No burden we have in life is meant for us to carry. It's for us to surrender to God, and He always finds a way of making it work out.
Hmm.
Um, so that's been huge for me recently. And another thing too is I kind of mentioned being grateful, being content, being thankful for everything. It's in Philippians 4:13. Was actually 4:11 through 4:13. I'll pull it up right now.
Yeah.
And most people know that as, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Hmm.
But if you read a little bit deeper before it, starting at verse 4:11, says, I am not, or it says, here it is. I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. So for me, the way I see it, um, he obviously says it being content in all things. It's not natural for us. It's something as people we kind of get frustrated when things don't go our way. Um, but satisfaction comes from being close to God and having that relationship with Christ and knowing that His way is always perfect. I think we as people, I know especially myself, we try really hard to take things into our own hands and say, oh, why did I have to lose that game? If I would have scored one more goal, or if I would have made this play, or if I wouldn't have messed up on the field, then we would have won. But at the end of the day, it's not my way. I don't get to write this story myself.
Hmm.
It's something that I just read and God's writing it. So I think, you can take this verse literally or not in a literal way, but I know what it is to be in need and I know what it is to have plenty. Um, that's a life thing and a sports thing. We're obviously so fortunate to have so much here at the school, but it's one thing to realize like, hey, I'm lucky no matter what. Like we lost. We could be a losing team at Tampa and never win a game, but we still have so much here at the school and in this area. So that's something I think that's the key to peace and to happiness for me. It's
Yeah.
just and it can always be worse. It can always be
Yeah.
worse. It's a game we play at the end of the day. It's not no one's out there dying. No one's out
Hmm.
there with real problems that other people are facing. It's we're playing a lacrosse game at the end of the day. Is it everything to me? Absolutely. Is it everything
Yeah.
to us and our team? Yeah, we die to be on that field. We love being out there. It's what we do, but at the end of the day, it's a game. It's about how we can honor God through doing it. So
Yeah, and I think that's something that can take time to build, like to get to a point where like a loss doesn't destroy you, and bring you crumbling. Because there's emotions, of course, and you're gonna be upset about it, but with like casting burdens, like that's like a daily choice almost.
mm,
The burden is not just like, oh, I give this to you, bye, it's over. Like sometimes you have to every single day go to the
mm,
Lord with that burden and say, I can't hold this, like and surrendering that and knowing also where your identity is because I think
mm,
with sports it can quickly your identity can become into your sport and it's how you play and it's how you perform because in a sense you're conditioned into that from coaches and
mm,
results and it's true and it's true of dance for myself as well. It's like
mm.
the first thing I tell someone about myself is, oh, I'm a dancer. And it's like, so then though, when dance doesn't go well for me or I'm, not making a team, it's like, who am I? I like would be so confused and even a few years ago, like would struggle with that. And I have finally gotten to a place where it's like, okay, well, I'm a child of God first. So
Right.
that's where my identity lays and everything else is just, I do dance. That's something that's a part of me. And it
Mm.
seems like you yourself are at that place and I mean as it is a daily thing of course but I guess do you have anything to maybe someone who's not there what would you say to them to kind of shift their perspective into that.
Yeah, like you said, I think it absolutely is an accumulation of doing it daily. It's not just like you said, God, I feel this pain from losing this game. Why did this happen? I can't do it, and surrendering yourself to it and come to terms with it. If it was that easy, I mean, there'd be no problems. The world would be peaceful, at all times. But I think the biggest piece of advice I would give to someone struggling with that, I struggle with myself all the time, is realizing that life's not about you. It's really not. It's about how you can serve others and what God put you here to do. So, for example, losing that game is something that is going to stick with me for a while, stick with all of us for a while. Um, when you surrender it to him, he kind of puts you in a different perspective. Like, okay, I'm giving God this struggle that I'm having, whether it's losing a game, whatever it is in life. It really makes you take a step back and realize that, there's so many more things that are more important than playing a game or playing a sport. So I think the biggest piece of advice I'd give is just, look at it through all perspectives. It's not just about you. It's not just about winning games, not just about losing games, but it's about what it's preparing you for and how you can react to it and become better and learn from it. So,
Yeah, 100%. So I
yeah.
want to talk, let's go into like the game. I mean, not the game itself, the aftermath and everything that was there. So what was, I guess, the initial emotions just right off the bat of, I know it was shock, but because we can say that like, oh, like failure, but like it does hurt still, and it is really tough, and we don't have to, God also doesn't tell us to ignore that.
Mhm.
A verse that always comes to mind is like God is near the brokenhearted, and that's so true. And I feel that so deeply when I'm in those like tough trial moments. It's like you are really like I can feel how near He is, almost more so than when you're at the top of the world, truthfully. So just take me, I guess, to that moment for you.
Yeah, I mean, the knee-jerk reaction is just in disbelief. I think the entire time we were on the field while they were celebrating and right after it happened, what just happened? It wasn't until we got back to the locker room, when some emotions passed, that I kind of went up to everyone and I was like, "Hey, we're not going to feel like this ever again. Like this is for a reason. It's for a reason." And I think me saying it initially, I didn't really mean it, but it wasn't until I had talked to a lot of guys on the team, and the first thing I said was, God has never made a mistake. Like it wasn't a mistake that we lost. We weren't supposed to win. There's no, however the game went, and especially how the game ended, people are like, oh, it's easy to point fingers at people
Yeah.
for little things, and that's just not how it is. There's no mistakes that were made. That's how it was supposed to be, and why that is, we don't know right now. We don't. And one thing I have written down is God never gives us the entire path to take in life. He only gives us the next step, and that's what faith is. And an analogy that kind of ties into that is God's will for us is that of a headlamp. When you're in the dark, you use a headlamp to see the next step, but not the entire path. And I question why can't we see the whole path? And it's because that's what faith is. It's trusting the Lord's timing and His purpose. We don't get to see why we lost, why the game went, how it went. We don't get to see that right now. All we can see is, all right, it's the next step we can take. It's getting stronger as a team. It's getting learning from it. It's watching more film on it. Whatever it may be, it's there's always a next step to take. And for us, I think it's getting back together in the fall, working our tails off this summer, um, and as soon as we can, it's getting back after it. So I think that's the next step for us. We don't get to see why it went down the way it did, but that's kind of my thought process on it. And those were the emotions. I'd say it took me a couple of days to really sit with it and think about why it went down the way it did. But the first thing that came to mind was God never makes a mistake. So
Hmm. Yeah, that is exactly it. And the mindset is I feel like the first step is sort of surrendering the why, because that
mhm,
is the knee-jerk reaction is like, why did this happen? And it's like, well, once you've started to experience life with the Lord, you know that you're not going to get that answer right away. It's just not how
mhm,
He works. And you might get that answer a year from now, and it might be very direct. It might be 3 years from now. You just don't know. And then when you look back in hindsight, you can really
mhm,
see His hand through all of it. But I think the initial thing is just getting comfortable not knowing. You can't like play God, and I think that that is what I have tried to do at times is just like hold on because it's our human nature to want to
mhm.
understand. We want to know, but that's not what faith is. It's believing without seeing and with not knowing. So yeah.
Right, right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. So some other verses that come to my mind, I guess with failure as well, are like in the Bible, I feel like there is so much talk of trials and James 1, consider it joy when you face trials
Mhm.
of many kinds, or even Psalm 52, there's a line that says, let the bones you have broken rejoice. Like what God has broken for you, let that still be praise. And when you think of these things, for me, it's like that goes so far against what like a worldly view of failing is. Like, it feels like why would we celebrate when you don't win a game or when you don't succeed in what your hand is at. It's almost like failure is embarrassing because it can be, but biblically, like God tells us the exact opposite. He's like, celebrate, even Second Corinthians 2, there's like boast all the more gladly in my weakness, because that's where the power of Christ is. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on I guess that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what comes to mind for me when I read those verses is it's a privilege to feel the weakness and the pain of coming up short and failing and not getting your way. There's a certain way I think that's important. You got to learn how to lose, I think, a lot. Learn how to deal with that pain of failure when things don't go your way. Like there's a way to go about it. It's to be content, rejoice in it, because it's a privilege to feel that way, whether you see it or not. Um, Not a lot of people get to feel that, and that's a privilege. It's a privilege. I told that to coach one of our meetings. I said, you get to feel that loss. Like not a lot of teams feel that loss. A
Yeah.
lot of teams feel the loss of losing in the first round, of not making the playoffs, of not getting to play ever again. Some teams their program gets cut and that's it. So for
Mhm.
us, like that pain of losing in overtime in the last game of the year is it's a privilege. You get to feel that, and I think that's just a way of coming to peace with shortcomings and when things get tough. It's not just a sports thing. Obviously, it's a life thing. That's sports is just my way of learning about life. So when I talk in sports terms, I try and relate it to everything. But
Yeah, yeah,
that's
certainly.
that's the way I see it. Those verses and what you said, it's perfectly well said.
I think that's such a beautiful perspective of it as well, because it is all like I get to do this. I get
Hmm.
to, and not even just like get to go perform on that stage, but like to feel it, like to just
Hmm.
be able to feel sadness is like God created every emotion, you're
Yeah.
going to feel the whole full range. And then, like we were saying before too, like the sadness is sometimes what's going to make you fall and lean on to him because you've got nowhere else to turn. And, you have to, it draws you closer to where he's at,
Hmm.
certainly. So,
Absolutely does.
yeah.
Absolutely does.
And then, I mean, going off of that too, it's like, what does practically like rejoicing in failure look like? Like it's not necessarily jumping up and down and sell, but like I guess for you specifically, how do you live those verses out in a practical sense?
Yeah, for me, personally, it's, I see failure and shortcoming as fuel for next year and fuel for tomorrow, fuel for the next day. Um, so for me, it's like, it's a privilege to feel this pain because I get to feel it and apply it to something right away and apply it to something that's going to make myself better, make my teammates better, whatever it is, in the long run. So for me, it's, consider it joy when you face trials of many kinds. Um, that's the joy in it for me is knowing tomorrow I get to wake up and use that pain and apply it towards something to make myself better. So that's what I see in it. And what's crazy about it too is, even if we had won that game or, you never lose, like your mindset should be the same the next day, the next year, the next season, whatever, of trying to get better, 1% better every day. That's a term we use a lot here. Um, but it's true. Like it's a good thing we get to feel that loss and come up short because now we just go harder next time and use that as fuel. So that's how I see it personally.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, kind of shifting back, like to give you a chance, looking over the whole season, the journey for you or for the team, are there
Mhm.
any moments or themes, I guess, that stick out of, maybe God working through the team, working through you on the field, off the field, that jump to mind in it?
Yeah. Um, I see God in a lot of things. And, like we talked about, you don't see it until you're looking back on it. That's when it's most apparent is when it's done. It's in the past. You look back and you kind of analyze things like, why did this happen? Why did this go the way it did? That's when I see God in most things. But, obviously right now I can't say why it happened that we lost in the last game of the year, but I can say that it's for a reason. And and I try and think of specific moments from this year. It's trouble. It's hard for me to do it just because it's so recent. But I can think of things from in years past that have happened for reasons, um, to be specific, like losing to Lenore Ryan in my freshman year, and my sophomore year as well. It's always been fuel for us moving forward, So like those losses suck, right? But it doesn't suck as much as losing in the national championship.
Hmm.
And so for us, every year I've been here has been a step forward. Like my freshman year, we lost first round by one. Okay. Next year, we lose in the final four by one. My junior year, this year, we lose the national championship by one. So it's
There's
every
only
year.
one place to go from
Yeah, yeah.
there,
So
right? Win by one.
yeah. So I mean, obviously that's the goal, but when I look back on all these years that we've been through as a team, it's like, okay, it's one more step. It's one more step forward. It's one more step forward. So those are some specific moments that I really look back on. Okay, this is weird. This doesn't just happen.
Hmm.
Like stuff like that doesn't just happen. It's
No.
usually for a reason.
Yeah,
So that's
certainly.
that's what I see when I look back and reflect.
And like I was saying at the beginning, like I really do feel like God is doing something big with this team, and I think it'll be really cool for, even a year to look back on and see like even all the content I had from last year of talking with some of the guys and just the things people were saying, and then I was going through all of my videos before the national championship and being like how much has grown and how much has changed in individual players and as the team in just that one year. And I am excited of, people who watch this a year from now and even looking back a year from now of like if, what's been revealed at that point. What do we
Right.
know about the why, or what else has, been learned? What else has God done in that season, since then. I think that will be special to
Oh
look
yeah.
at, I
That's
think.
I mean that gives me chills. That really
Yeah.
does. That's amazing. It's
Yeah.
and I think, it makes me think of like when you ask God for things, when things happen, it doesn't happen right away. It's like, you go to the gym for one day, the next day you're not going to be completely transformed in your body. It's an accumulation of years and days of putting work in and trusting in God. And that's what this so far my career has been. So
Hmm.
I agree with you. I'm very excited to see how this year goes for us as a team. I think, we're only going to be closer and stronger together, um, based on how the past few years have been for us. So it's going to be cool to see. And I know I'm not the only one that feels like this. I'm just kind of reflecting all of our thoughts and our talks and our emotions. So
Yeah. So before we wrap up, what is maybe a piece of advice you would give to your high school self, or, an athlete in high school that's looking to continue their sport and grow in their faith going into college?
yeah, I think the first thing I'd say, it's something I learned a while ago, but it's that of our relationship with God is that of a captain and crew members on a rowboat. And, the captain tells us where to go and he leads the ship, right? The row people row in the boat, just row no matter what's going on. So for us, I think our relationship is God's the captain, right? And we're just the crew members on there. All we know, all our job is just to row as hard as we can. Um, and God leads the way, takes us where we're supposed to be. So my advice would just be to row your boat every day. Get up, make sure you're working as hard as you possibly can towards this goal that God will ultimately lead you to. Get up, do the right things. Make sure you're rowing forwards, not backwards. So if you're not rowing forwards, then you're either getting better, or you're getting worse. So I'd say just make sure you're doing the right things, and keep faith in God and where He's taking you. So that's what I would say. It's my biggest piece of advice.
I love that. That's like I'm thinking about that in my own life now, right now. I feel like
Yeah.
that's going to be great for someone to hear. That's
Mhm.
awesome. And then to wrap it up, so my favorite story in the Bible is Luke chapter 5 when Jesus calls his first disciples and he goes onto the boat and he's like, cast your net, let's catch fish. And the first thing Simon says to him is, we've been out here all night, we've caught nothing. And then the second thing he says, but if you tell me to, then I will do it. They cast the net breaks. They fill two boats and they're like sinking. Like that's how many fish they caught when they had zero the night before. That story just like sits with me because you can go from nothing to overflowing in a moment when Jesus steps
Mhm.
onto the scene. And it also is so powerful because the first thing that Simon says to him is, we've been here all night. Like it's the first thing is like it's not going to work is his first instinct. And I feel like so often sometimes when I'm in prayer, like that is what I'm saying to God. I'm like, I've been doing this. I've been working hard at this. Why are you not opening this door? Or why did you lead me to the national championship just to lose? You start thinking things like that. But then it's
Mhm.
like, okay, but if you tell me to, I'm gonna do it. So is there a moment in your life where you feel like you hit a dead end or like we're almost going to give up, but then you
Mhm.
cast the net one more time and God did something with it?
Yeah, for me, that moment's right now, to be honest. It's right now. Um, you know, going in my last year of college and this season ending the way it did, it's like, why? I know everybody feels it. Why? Why? I've done this 3 years. I failed 3 years in a row. Lost in the playoffs, lost the championship. What am I doing? Why? Why is this happening? But for me, it's right now. And sure as heck, I'm gonna do everything I can to get back out there and put my net back in the water. I know my teammates are gonna do the same. But that's right now for me. So I think that's what's exciting about this next chapter for all of us is, we just came back with an empty net. We're frustrated. We're all confused, asking questions. Why did this happen? Why did we lose? Um, but one more crack away from getting to everything. So that's my mindset. No matter what, no matter how many times I feel. If I had 8 years of college and we came up short every single year, I'd still say, all right, one
Hmm.
more rep, one more day of practice, one more step forward, one more game at a time. And I think that's the way to approach life and approach sports, and that's how I feel, and that's how all 60 of us feel on the Tampa men's lacrosse team. So that's right now for
That
me.
that's exciting to hear, and I think it's a perfect way to wrap this up because when I was, writing things down earlier and I was writing, like, I don't have a neat bow to wrap up this story of, my life and my journey yet. I have a net that I'm just going to keep casting. And that's exactly what you're saying right now. There's no bow at the end of the story. Like we're casting a net and I'm excited to see what your team is going to do next year
Yep.
and everything that God's going to do through you. So that is awesome. Thank you so much for hopping on here with me today and having this conversation. It's been on my mind for so long, and I'm really glad that we, had a reason to make it happen. So it's been
Me
awesome.
too. Me too. Thank you so much for your time. I could talk about this stuff forever. And yeah, I'm glad to do it too. So thank you. It's been
Awesome.
awesome.
Thanks so much, Grant.
Thank you.